Healing does not respond to pressure. And when you go through a breakup, you are usually trying to prove these three things. You're trying to prove your worth, you're trying to regain control, and you're trying to avoid grief. And none of these lead to clarity, they lead to repetition. And welcome back to another episode of Coming Up for Air with myself, Lou. Welcome to Wednesday. How the bloody hell is it Christmas Eve a week today? Where on earth has September, October, November, December gone? I feel like I've blinked and it's like, surprise! It's Christmas! I am going to admit something now. I did all my Christmas shopping last night. Actually, no, that's a lie. I need to still buy for my youngest niece. I basically need to see her later and just ask her what she wants because I want to buy her a Minnie Mouse bag. She's obsessed with Minnie. I want to buy her a Minnie Mouse bag for her sleepovers at Nanny's house because she rocked up apparently with like a couple of bags the other week. So I want to buy her a Minnie Mouse overnight bag. But she's 4, so I don't really know how much a Minnie Mouse overnight bag would be appreciated. But they have an entire playroom of toys. They have so much stuff. Like, I'm going to say to my brother, like, maybe you should do like a one toy in, one toy out sort of process here. And maybe give some toys up to charity or take them to, like, I don't know, where they can donate toys to like kids that don't have them at Christmas or something along those lines. Because I went into their playroom the other day and I was like, right, I haven't really got any inspiration here because she has one of everything. And my eldest niece is 6. So she just wants jeans, she wants jewelry, she wants to be a cool girl. I've bought her some Squishmallow headphones, which is hilarious because she's 6, she's a princess, she's a dancer, she loves Disney, loves Disney princesses, loves makeup, loves jewelry. Went to a pantomime on Sunday and she wore a bag over her shoulder the entire time. I said, what have you got in your bag? She was like, makeup. I was like, obviously, that's what 6-year-olds carry in their bags. Makeup, duh. Which is hilarious because once upon a time, I was that 6-year-old to my sisters. And I just think it is so funny because they're obviously now watching me go through being like an auntie and me being like, oh my God, she's so funny. She said this. And they're like, Lou, you used to be exactly the same. Yeah, no, what I was going to say was she's into like Squishmallows, but she likes the sharks. So she's got Squishmallow shark Bluetooth headphones for when they go camping. Well, they don't go camping. They go like, they go on like adventures in the van, and apparently like she wanted these headphones. So I've managed to trace some. They're all out of stock. I've managed to find some. I've probably paid over the odds for them, but that will teach me for doing my Christmas shopping a week before Christmas. But it's done. Have I got any Christmas cards? No. Do I need Christmas wrapping? Yes. So I need to sort all of that out, which is, yeah, life choices and all that. But I don't know what I thought this year. I thought it was just going to be really easy, but my sister also sent me something for my nephew and I was like, oh, it's out of stock. And she was like, it wasn't a month ago when I sent it to you. And I was like, oh, yeah, sorry about that. Anyway, I've got him something better. I've got him dinosaur cars. Anyway, welcome back. Welcome in. I have decided to do this episode because I think I give a lot of advice. Well, I think I give a lot of advice. And I think I give advice on certain topics and stuff. And it's like what I went through in my breakup and like how I coped with no contact and how I coped with like seeing him move on to a new relationship, how I coped with like emotional affairs, cheating, and all of those things that I will cover. And I think they're all really important topics to cover and like some of the hardest topics to get over. However, next year, my content is taking a big fat turn, and I have been working solidly, very hard to create new types of content because the content that I have like continued to produce this year has served me so well. it has meant that I have grown 3 times the size that I thought I was going to online, which is great because I'm drawing in new people all the time on their healing journeys. However, I wanted to take it a little bit of a turn. I tried to turn it this year, but I just have not had time. And I'm going to spend the time off over Christmas, hence me not wanting to like post too much over Christmas. I want to spend that time with like not reinventing myself, because I'm not going to. I'm still going to talk about my breakup. I'm still going to talk about healing. But I want to kind of now give advice on like where I am now in my life. And like, I think if I had listened to somebody whilst I was going through my breakup who was saying, hey, like I'm 3 years like post breakup, and I mean 3 years since the day they left me, I'm probably like a year and a half post healing. I'd probably even actually say probably a year. It took me a long time to heal from a lot of trauma, a lot of wounds, a lot of like emotions and stuff. So I'd probably say that I am solidly like a year probably post healing. I've obviously gone through a whole year of like not being connected to my ex in terms of like a working capacity as well. So I am like a full year disconnected from my ex. So I feel like I can now sit into this version of myself that's like, what have I been doing in these 3 years? How have I healed? And what would my advice be? I want to advise people in a way that's like, if you pick this episode up and you are going through like the worst time and you are in the trenches of your breakup, I have not only been there, but these are the decisions that I made, and this is the advice that I would give. And that's why I've called this episode, Decisions You Make After Your Breakup Will Drastically Change Your Life, because they have drastically changed mine. So I am going to come at you with this episode from a point of view of like, these are the decisions that I made. They're not the decisions that you should make. You shouldn't just follow like brick for brick in my footsteps. But it might give you some food for thought to think like, oh, hold on a second, like maybe I don't have to be doing that, or maybe I should do that. It might change your opinion of something or your decision to do something, because I went through the motions of every single decision. Moving away, exposing my ex, going to his family, not talking to him, cutting him off, staying single, meeting somebody, getting into a relationship, buying a house, not buying a house. All these decisions are things that I made and have set me up now to where I am now. I'm very excited for this episode, actually. I've thought about it a lot. I've had lots of sleepless nights recently. I think there's a lot going on, and there's a lot for me to process at this time of year as well. Like, I put on my TikTok the other day, like a video of me saying like nothing absolutely prepares you for like to face another Christmas. Like saying to my parents, do you want to come to my house for breakfast? Because I'm on my own. And yes, I am so secure in being on my own, and so happy and so thrilled that I don't have to buy an additional Christmas present this year, because God knows where I'd have gotten that from. But there's still like a part of me that thinks that was never me. I was always like, what would my life be looking like if I was still living in that house? Would I still be having a house full? Probably. Would I still host like Christmas? Probably. Would I still be doing breakfast? Would I still be going to my parents? Like, God knows. Would I have had a family by now? Would I have like had a baby? Would we have planned a child? There's still all of those emotions that get brought up. And I think until you're in a new relationship, I think that is so normal to like regurgitate those emotions, but not to feel sad about them. It's just kind of like oh my God, that used to be my life. Like, I wonder what it would look like now. Would I be deciding to take the children to Lapland, UK? Absolutely not, because my friend's just spent £800 taking her children to Lapland, UK, and I cannot actually believe how expensive it is. Anyway, I'm not here to discuss that. Yeah, I wanted to do this episode because I just felt compelled, I felt pulled, and I wanted to explore this and basically get your guys' reaction on it as well. Like a little bit different sort of topic of conversation, a little bit different advice. And so, yeah, it'd be good to hear your feedback as well. So without further ado, guys, let's get into it. So this episode is not going to be about getting over somebody. It's going to be about how the decisions you make could drastically change like the next decade of your life. And I think especially when you've gone through, and I say a decade, like think back to the previous decade of your life when you were in a relationship. Think about all the decisions you made that shaped your life then. Like those decisions are going to be drastically different to the decisions that you make now and how that's going to shape your life now. And I think obviously I talk about when you go through a breakup, that you go through an identity crisis, it strips you back to basics. Like, who are you as a person? Because you are no longer so-and-so's girlfriend. You are no longer so-and-so's boyfriend. You aren't 50% of somebody. You are like wholeheartedly yourself. And I think the most interesting thing about that is 99% of you probably have no idea who you are. And I had no idea who I was. And my identity crisis was incredibly loud. I went from being a housewife to being dressing a certain way, having my hair a certain way, conducting myself in a certain way, to being a 365 party, blonde, feral, crop top wearing, low-rise jean, clarting, single girl. And I mean, that identity, as it was a crisis, it wasn't, because it was great. I loved that identity. That identity of me was the days of my life. I had the best time just partying, going to Ibiza, and I really felt like I came into myself, but I still was unsure who I wanted to be, because if I got into a new relationship, would I have just reverted back to my old self? And the answer is probably yes. I think that's one of like the first decisions that I made. It was kind of like, okay, like, am I going to get into a new relationship? Because that's all I wanted. I remember my ex's best friend. We were in a car. I can't remember what we were doing and why I was in a car with him when I was not with him anymore. I can't remember. I was in his car anyway. He was taking me somewhere. He really looked after me when we had gone through the breakup, and he said to me, I've already said to him that you're gonna find somebody, settle down, get married and have children really quick. And I remember sitting in his car and thinking, yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. That's gonna be me. And that was like probably 2 or 3 months after he left me. I was thinking, yeah, like I am going to get in I'm a relationship girly. I'm a girl that wants to be in a relationship. I'm a girl that just wants to be loved by one person. I am not the type of girl that would go around and go on a few dates and sleep with a few people and see what it's like to be single. That's just not me. I'm comforted and I'm secure when I'm in a relationship. So I'm probably just going to look for another relationship. And I remember frantically thinking, like, I need to find a husband, because that's all I know. And my brain had like associated safety with like one person, one rhythm of life, one emotional pattern. And my therapist said to me that like your body doesn't care about logic. It doesn't care about the fact that like you've just met this person, you've like slept with them really quickly, you've like moved in together, got married, done all this. It doesn't care about that. Your body cares about familiarity. And 14 years of my life, I had been with this one person that I confided in for absolutely everything. Every decision I made was made with him, all the way down to like the location of where I went to university, the first car that I bought, the job that I took. The reason why I was able to come out of law and go into a receptionist role was because my ex supported me in that. We were a team. Every single decision I had made up until 2022 was made with my ex-partner. We used to almost have like AGM meetings like over my dinner table at home. I'll never ever forget when the house came up for sale and I was like, this house has come up for sale, and we rang the estate agents and they were like, it's just fallen through, like literally this morning. And I was like, we need to go and see this house. And I was like, okay, we're going to see it. We went to see it and my dad was like, you have to buy it. And he was like, if you're not going to buy it, I am. And I know there was like a lot of pressure on my ex at the time. I had no savings to my name. I'd just come out of law school, just got my first job. and I was earning decent money, thank God, because we wouldn't have been able to raise the mortgage without my salary. But I had no money to my name. Like, if you've done a law degree, you know that, like, you come out and you are skin. My fourth year cost in the remits of 11.5 grand. Like, it was a joke. Like, for me not to even practice in law anymore, that is wild. Let's never revisit that ever again, because I think, yeah, I just can't. But I mean, I look at my degree every single day. It's on my shelf, like up here, but I'm super proud of it. But yeah, let's not go there. And that was a huge decision for us and a huge decision for him. And I was like, yeah, I'll back you 100%. Like, the minute that I get back on my feet, I will contribute and I will do this and we can do that. And my dad was there saying, like, whatever Lou can't contribute, I will contribute in time. We can renovate this house and make it something special. We made it something incredibly special, something that I will always, always, always be proud of. And, like, you know, me and my ex aren't on talking terms and we don't have anything to do with each other. And would I, you know, stop in the street and say hi? Probably not. But, like, we have something that I think we would both always look back on and be like, God, we grafted. Like, I remember when we had to dig the trenches for the extension, and I'm pretty sure the entirety of the Midlands had flooded, and we had plastic bags on our feet and we had our wellies on, and it was like we had all got trench foot. It was so bad. And just stupid stuff like having to rip the floor up because the flooring guys hadn't advised us the right way. We had, like, spent over 10 grand on a floor that we then had to rip up. It was so stressful, but, like, the end product was why I was able to set myself up financially after the breakup. I think people are shocked when I'm quite open and talk about, like, if it wasn't for my ex doing the house up and stuff, like, would I have been set up like I am? Probably not. But a hell of a lot of time went into that house from my family's perspective, and we were a team and we made that decision together. There was not one part of me that thought when we bought that house that I would be sitting 5 years later talking about how we had split up. It just wasn't on my radar of things. Every single big, bold decision was made with somebody holding my hand saying, go for it, or, like, don't do that. When I came to, like, buying my own house on my own, I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. This is scary. And, like, I looked at 2-bedroom houses and I was thinking, if I get a 2-bedroom house, I'm going to have more money to, like, left over to do things with. If I buy a 3-bedroom house, it means I've got an office. Like, do I have a drive? Do I compromise a drive? Like, my car is my pride and joy. Do I want it on the road? Do I want to park on the road? Do I want a small drive? I'd gone from being, like, living in a house where the drive was like a car park, we could, like, fit 6 cars on it, to, like, looking at houses that if you were looking at drives and garages, they were like, oh yeah, it's 25 grand more for a drive and a garage. And it's like, how did I make those decisions? Like, how my brain making those decisions was overwhelming. And I think when they disappear, your nervous system just panics. And this is why I think a lot of people end up going back to their ex, because it's like they panic in that nervous system type of, like, oh my God, I can't deal with this. These are, like, big decisions that I don't want to be making by myself, and I've got no one to talk to. And your nervous system goes back into, like, panic mode, fight or flight. You start romanticizing the past and you reach out to your ex and you think, I wish I didn't do that. Luckily, now I say this with, like, in the weirdest way, luckily, this is going to sound so brutal to me, my ex didn't want me back. So I couldn't reach out and be like, hey, kind of don't want to do this by myself. Because he'd have been like, hey, kind of moved on with my life. And because it happened so quickly, because he moved on so fast, I think that hit me more, because I was like, well, there's really no going back now, because he's made his decision, he's stood firm in it, and he's like, no, like, we're done, and I've moved on and I found somebody new. And I was kind of like, oh, okay, well, I guess it's just me then. So my decisions after my ex left me were really forced to begin with. I had to force myself not to message, because I was messaging somebody that could not have cared less whether I wanted them back or not, because they didn't want me. I was forcing myself to be single. I was forcing myself to like find a new house. I was forcing myself to like try and find happiness in being alone. And I think the very first decision I made was not following in the footsteps of my ex and doing what my ex did, and deciding to face and soothe the discomfort that I was feeling internally, not outsourcing it to another person. Because there are dating apps out there that you could meet somebody and literally get into a relationship so quickly that it's so easy to not work through feelings that you have internally. Like, rushing into something is a dangerous move. Like, it is the most dangerous decision you could make. And I can say that confidently now, because what I wanted when I first came out of my breakup and my relationship is absolutely nothing like what I want now. Nothing. And I cannot even describe how much I do not want anything that reflects my old relationship. Yes, I want the house. Yes, I want the engagement. Yes, I want like a marriage and things like that. That side, yes, of course, they're going to mirror my relationship, because that's kind of what relationships do and evolve into. Do I want anything like the type of relationship we had? Absolutely not. Like, no. And yet I would go looking and act in a way that was so wifey. Like, I was seeing somebody after my breakup and I could feel myself just being wifey. Like, I was doing things for this person and I was thinking, this is just like old me. This is my body and my brain reverting back into something that feels secure. I'm secure in making breakfast and getting lunch and checking in and saying, do you want this? Do you want that? Don't worry about it. I'll take you. I'll collect you. All me again. And it was nothing to do with the person that I met. I think we were both going through a huge period of change in both of our lives. But like, now, would I do that with somebody? No, I would not. Of course, like, actually, to a degree, of course, I would be caring, but I'd be caring in other ways, making sure that it was shown to me back in the way that I wanted it to be shown. And I think society will put pressure on you to like bounce back, glow up, like make your ex jealous. There was not one part of me that wanted my ex to feel jealousy. I think the decision that I made to not do the jealousy thing was a complete reflection on just like how much I had been hurt. I don't describe myself as being a jealous person ever. I'm quite secure in how I look and how I like show up in the world, and I just think that everybody's different, and I just wouldn't be jealous of anybody. I think like you really can make your life exactly what you want to make it. And if somebody's living a life that I would think, oh God, I wish I had that, I would work harder and strive more to get towards that goal, you know? But I found myself after my breakup feeling incredibly jealous of the person that took my place, because that's exactly what happened. Like, I moved out, they moved in kind of way, like not actually moved into my house, but like I moved out of his life and they moved into like my space. And I found myself becoming quite jealous of that. And then I remember thinking, there's no way that I would want to hurt my ex's feelings. And people are like, what? Like, with everything that went on and the way that he acted and the things that he did, you don't want to hurt his feelings. And I'm like, no, because I didn't know whether he was just like deflecting. And then it was all going to hit him at once, like in a few years' time. It still could. This whole situation could be regurgitated and triggered by anything. And I think that's something that I wanted to really not happen with me. I didn't want like to get into a relationship, somebody mentioned being engaged, and me to be in like completely triggered and be like, oh my God, no, I don't want that. When I do want that, it's just that I was left with some trauma. I say some. I was left with a lot of trauma around somebody promising me forever and then being able to just leave, and that ring not really meaning what it was supposed to have meant. And like, me and my therapist, and I'm going off on a tangent, have spoken about like whether or not like I would wear a ring again, or whether or not I would wear an engagement ring, and then if like an engagement to me reflects a ring, and if that is something that I think when I get engaged I want somebody to give me a ring. My therapist worked through that with me. It was like, it doesn't have to be a ring. You don't have to wear a ring if that is triggering, as long as you can communicate that with a person. And we worked through all of that, and there's still a possibility that I might turn around and say like, I don't want a ring for an engagement. My engagement might just be booking my wedding. Who knows? Healing does not respond to pressure. And when you go through a breakup, you are usually trying to prove these three things. You're trying to prove your worth, you're trying to regain control, and you're trying to avoid grief. And none of these lead to clarity. They lead to repetition. So when you go through a breakup and you are thinking, oh my God, I need to jump into something new, you will repeat old patterns. And that's when people say rebound. Rebounds can last years. And then people can get out of rebound relationships and think, oh my God, I haven't healed from 2017 when I left my partner and jumped straight into a relationship. People who rush into new relationships will often say like, I don't want the same thing ever again, and then mirror their entire previous relationship again. Everything's the same. What they do is the same. How they see each other, how they devise their time, the places they visit, the holidays they go on, how they holiday, how they communicate. That's all repeated. And yet that person's probably gone like, oh my God, they're so different. They're not. They just think they're different because they've told themselves they're different. And realistically, your subconscious has, and realistically, if this has happened, your ex is probably subconscious, your ex has realistically chosen something that is like the complete same thing as what you pair had, just packaged differently. Different person, different looks, different hobbies, I don't know, different location. But the whole dynamic of that relationship is exactly the same, which means history repeats itself. And that's what I mean when people say like, does your ex come back? And I say like, well, mine hasn't. But I've spoken to a girl recently who hopefully next year we're going to collaborate on a few podcast things. And she was saying that like, she's older than me. She's 44 or 45. Don't want to do an injustice here, but I think she's 44 or 45. Can't remember. She was married for 13 years. And she was saying to me that her ex-husband got into a relationship and it was like the carbon copy of like their relationship, but the girl looked completely different. And she was like, 5 years later, he was knocking on my front door saying that he made a huge mistake. And she was like, could you imagine my face? I was like, what? What the hell? And the hard truth is, if you don't pause and understand why you stayed so long in that relationship, you will get into another relationship that mirrors the same things as your past relationship, and you'll stay again. And you won't have grown, and you won't have learned all these things that you could potentially be learning, that the universe is saying, we want you to learn these things, like this is why you're on this path. If you ignore all the signs from the universe, then you will end up in the same position as you were within your last relationship. And I just wanted to address something that like, and one thing that annoys me that isn't said enough online that I'm going to address on here, and I'm going to cut this down into a small clip because I'm going to post it everywhere, is that choosing to stay single does not mean you are waiting for the love of your life to come and sweep you off your feet. You are rebuilding. If you have stayed single after a relationship breakdown, that is your prime time to be rebuilding, because your values will have changed, your tolerance would have changed, your nervous system will have adapted. Time alone allows you to learn how peace shows up in your body, learn how peace actually feels. It gives you time to identify which compromises were actually like self-betrayal. Like when you were saying, oh, it was just a compromise in your old relationship. Was it a compromise, or was it a boundary being like trodden all over and you just being like, I can't be bothered to say something because I want to be a chill, cool girl in this relationship? And like, I talk about that all the time, how I was desperately trying to be this like really chilled out girlfriend and not really have an opinion on my ex potentially like doing things that I'd be like, well, why can't we spend time together? I was constantly trampling on like boundaries of mine. And it will also give you time to like separate your intuition from like anxiety, which I think is really important, because this is where people panic, because silence makes everything so much louder and it will expose everything that you have kind of like buried and not really thought about. And I think a lot of people, like I said, panic because this is where you will start thinking, oh my God, I'm so alone. I'm on my own. I'm like so lonely. The discomfort of being alone is normal, but it's like recalibration. But it's like, but you start noticing little things like how little chaos you actually need. Like I used to say that I thrive in chaos. I thrive in my own chaos. I am crazy and manic. But within my relationship, I don't need that. I don't need the chaos. Like, it makes you realize how much space your body actually requires and how important having your own space actually is. And it made me realize how unfamiliar calm was. That's not because I had a chaotic relationship. It's because my entire life was devoted to somebody else. My routine, the decisions I make, like I said, my day, I would wake up in the morning and think, I need to message him to say have a good day, check in with him at lunchtime, ask him what time he's coming home for dinner, ask him what he fancied for dinner, go to the shops, would he enjoy this, would he like this, do I fancy this, do I fancy this? I can absolutely assure you 1010% that did not come first. It was, does he fancy this? And that is just how I lived, and I was perfectly happy with that. Being on your own makes you realize that, like, calm is an unfamiliar feeling to you. And I would say that we had a pretty chilled relationship. And yet, when I was actually chilled and calm, I was like, whoa, this feels really fucking strange. And moving on to another important topic, which I do not think is spoken about enough, and so I'm going to talk about it today. The clarity you get from being in your own company is huge. You go from thinking, do they like me, to how does my body, brain, nervous system, everything feel around them? And I was seeing a guy who put my nervous system straight into fight or flight. Did I ignore it? Yeah, I did. Because there were certain elements in that person where I thought, that is so different to my ex. My nervous system was going, please listen. Please listen. You are in fight or flight. Again, get out. And this was huge to me because that's when I found that I was like, oh my God, like, I don't actually care if someone, of course, no, right, hold on. You have to like somebody. But if they're asking to spend time with you, if they're asking to see you, they probably like you. But I went from thinking, do they like me? And that like consuming me and needing the validation of somebody saying, I really like you, I really care about you, to how the hell do I feel around them? How is my body showing up for me? And this will be massive because your body will remember who drained you, who you required to shrink for, and who brought that tension to your chest, and who silenced you. Like, I will always say I was in a loving, really loving relationship. And I think that's why I kind of felt the switch when he said like he checked out 6 months before. The tightness in my chest that I felt when he would go away and had like lied to me about who he was with, where he was, like that doesn't go away. That tightness in your chest, your body will remind you of that. And that's why I'm like preaching about staying by yourself, because would I be so laid back about somebody lying to me about their location, about who they would with. Absolutely not. I do not want to be in a relationship where I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine. I don't feel that bad about it. Or being told you've got nothing to worry about. Or like, I don't see the problem with us staying in a hotel with a group of girls. I was always like, yeah, I'm like so secure and really secure in how I feel, and I trust my partner 110%. Right. The old me? Fine. The new me? No. And I hate this narrative of like psycho. I hate it. That's why I did a whole episode on like, you are not the psycho ex. You have just got boundaries. And if a boundary of yours is, I feel uncomfortable with you staying in a hotel where I know there are girls that I don't know are staying, or you're going to an event with girls that I don't really know, they don't really know me, they don't really know us as a couple, like, and I feel a certain way about that. Having your feelings disregarded because stop being a psycho, stop being overprotective. No, I'm just saying I have feelings towards it. Why they're not being taken on board? Like, I think people can, when they go to therapy, I think people can over-therapize things. But I think that is just basic, like, respect, and at the basic level of respect. And the more I think about the last year of my relationship, the more I realized that it lacked a complete whole level of respect. There was literally no respect for me whatsoever, and how I felt was not really important. And that makes me incredibly sad, because it never was always like that. And now that's made me realize that I was probably quite lax on certain things, and I probably should have spoken up more. And like I said, I wasn't intentionally silenced, but I was silenced. I didn't feel like I could speak about my emotions because I'd get an eye roll, or being like told I'm too emotional, or that's silly, you shouldn't be getting like annoyed about that. Even worse, I used to get, so-and-so's partner doesn't kick off. So I was being compared to somebody else's partner, and it's like, now going through therapy, I have realized, and this sounds like a totally stupid statement, but like, I am my own person, and if that affects me, that's all that should matter to another person, especially as somebody who loves and should care about you. Not all of my relationship was bad, but because your body has gone through certain things, it will remind you of certain things, and they will be at the like forefront of your brain. And staying on my own and being by myself and being in my own company has meant that like I have grown so much. Growth makes old dynamics intolerable. You do not stand for anything. Trust me, you don't. You get firm. And some men really like it. And they're like, God, you know what you want. It's funny, I went out in Birmingham at the weekend with one of my oldest friends. We had such a good time at the markets. And there was these guys, we went to a few bars after, and there were these guys in this bar, and they said something, and me being me, after a few wines, I was like taking the mickey out of them. Two of them had like, they were quite similarly built, both had bald heads, they looked related. So I like made a comment and made a joke. And one of the guys said to my friend, she's fierce. And my friend was like, I know, like honestly. And he was like, why do I want to talk to her more? And I think I was like berating these guys as a joke, and they were like, no, we want to talk to you some more. So like, some guys really like it, and then there'll be other people that don't, because they don't want to show up as in a certain way. And I think that was a huge factor in my previous relationship. My ex would never have turned around to his friends and said, I can't do that because my ex, I am his ex, but I can't do that because my girlfriend said no. Or I'm just going to ask my girlfriend's opinion on that because I'm unsure how she would feel on that. That is a basic level of respect. That's not whipped. That's not under the thumb. That's an adult respecting an adult. And I just didn't have that. And I didn't realize how much that was lacking in my relationship until I spoke things through. And I was blaming myself and saying like, I was just a little bit nervous about it, and I didn't want him to not spread his wings. I didn't want him to not go to these events. I didn't want him to miss out because his friends were going. And my therapist was saying to me, yeah, but you're not in a relationship with his friends. You're in your relationship and you are your own person. So if that affects you, that affects you. And if he's ignoring that, then that's more to say on his character than it is the fact that you have apprehensions about a certain situation. It's taken me a long time to realize that it is okay to have and take issue with certain things that you don't feel comfortable with. And again, like I said, like you have to note how you feel, not like what's the reaction. So like, oh my God, what's the reaction going to be? No, how's that making you feel? I would automatically think, God, if I say no, he's going to be like, well, so-and-so's doing it. So like, oh, that's just ridiculous. Like, why can't I go? Well, actually, because it makes me feel like shit. So all of these things are the things that I have learned whilst coming out of my relationship and being able to sit in the uncomfortableness of these feelings, because they will overwhelm you. Sometimes it is so overwhelming because you have to redefine your view on love. This is one of the hardest things I think I had to do coming out of my relationship, because I would have said that we were so in love. I'd have said that we were like so in love, and I hadn't realized just how in love with him I actually was. I loved with my entire body, soul, spirit, everything went into him. And long relationships often reward endurance. Something that my therapist said to me, it was like the staying, the holding on, the trying, the it will get better, they will change, they're not going to do that again, they do it again, they're not going to do it again, one more chance. We've got so much to fight for. If you have said that line, you understand what I mean, that it does reward endurance, but love is not endurance. Like, love does not require constant sacrifice. Love does not require you to abandon your boundaries, abandon how you feel, like abandon yourself. And after time alone and being by myself, the definition of love becomes so much quieter. And I don't know if you're part of my Patreon and part of my single winter series, I talk about the icks last week that I gave myself during my relationship, because I was so outwardly loving, so loud about it, and so much like, this is what love is. And I would like want to tell the whole world. And now love shows up in my life as consistency, mutual effort, like emotional safety. And I talk about this so much, but like to feel emotionally safe in somebody's presence, in somebody's arms, in someone's just life is huge. And this was so difficult to get my head around, because I thought love was like this big fat act. And it wasn't that we were putting on an act, but like I felt that love to me was like having what society says that you should have by a certain age or by a certain length of time in a relationship. And that just wasn't the case. Love is like somebody being consistent with you and listening to you and making sure they're showing up in a way that feels emotionally safe to you. I think because we had such a chaotic sort of life, we're always doing something, we're here, there and everywhere, we're so busy, blah blah blah, blah all the time, like calm didn't feel right. Chaos felt right to me, and chaos felt like love and chemistry, whereas like calm isn't boring. Calm is like regulated emotions, and like love showing up in two people that have like done the work, done the healing, shouldn't feel like chaos. It should feel calm. It shouldn't feel like you're thinking, are they thinking about their ex? Are they wanting to be with me? Does them pulling away a little bit like that. What does that mean? Putting yourself back into an emotional state of like fight or flight. That's not love. That isn't love. That's inconsistency. And that's what you used to get in a previous relationship. And I think so many of your standards will be built when you sit in like time alone. Like standards are built in solitude. Time alone will teach you what you will tolerate and what you won't tolerate. And a big thing for me was like apologizing for how I feel. I just don't tolerate that. If I feel like I'm in a situation where I'm having to apologize for being emotional, I'm out straight away. I just won't tolerate it if somebody is making me feel like I have to over-explain why I feel a certain way, usually because of how they've acted. I will just be out of there so quick. There is no way that I'm ever going to stand in front of somebody, explain what they've done when they know they've done it, when they made the conscious effort to make those decisions, knowing they were going to hurt my feelings. I am not ever going to stand in front of somebody and say, this is what you did, this is how it hurt my feelings, and this is why I feel like this. They know. Unfortunately, it's the hardest thing to probably process, but they know what they were doing. They knew it was going to hurt your feelings, and they did it anyway. And there's just no way that I would ever stand in front of somebody and do that. I'm just not. It's just not something that I'll ever do ever again. And it took me a long time. It took me a long time to learn that and to learn that behavior. I will never over-explain my emotions to anybody ever. And yet, when I came out of my relationship, I was over-explaining my emotions to my ex a year after. So I would have got into a new relationship probably over explaining my feelings. You shouldn't have to do that to somebody that is an adult. They should know. Like I said, people make decisions knowing of the consequences. You cannot tell me that you don't make a decision knowing that, oh, I didn't even know that was going to happen. What? Yeah, you did. And I mean from a point of view that like you, like in a relationship, some people make decisions and say like, I didn't think that was going to hurt you. Okay. Righto. And there's a type of thing online that like kind of depicts like standards and people saying they have standards and it being like a snob factor of like people looking down like, I have standards. No, it's not that you have standards because you're better than them. You have standards because you have sat in solitude on your own. You're not desperate anymore. You're not desperate to find love because of how you felt after you came out of your relationship, keeping up with your ex, making your ex jealous. You don't have to settle for average. You don't have to settle for like lowering your standards and tolerating things that you shouldn't be tolerating. Like you're fine by yourself. So if somebody comes along and says, oh, your standards are too high. No, they're not. You just know what you're going to tolerate. And sometimes that reaction tells you everything you need to know about that person, and that person doesn't belong in your life. Trust me. I think when you get to this point, you realize that relationships aren't something that you chase. I think there is a lot to be said about knowing that you deserve more and being able to really, really work on knowing that you deserve the best. If you are telling yourself that you deserve better, but you don't believe it, there is no point in telling yourself that you deserve better. You have to believe it. I'm going to do something on my Patreon about this. So I'm going to release an additional episode on knowing that you actually deserve more and how you should believe that you deserve more. The reason why I know that I've not met somebody that has like completely swept me off my feet is because I still have certain things that I want to work through, and I am blocking that person from coming into my life. I know the minute that I open my heart up, and I know the minute that I get serious about telling myself that I genuinely want to be in a relationship, I know someone will show up for me. But at the minute, no, I've got too much I need to do. I'm far too busy. So one day you will hopefully get to the point where I am, and you will realize that the decision you make and the decisions you make following your breakup have been the best decisions that you've ever made. And I will never, ever, ever, ever look back on my life and think I wish I did that, I wish I did this. I just wouldn't. The only thing that I'm going to probably wish is that I wish that I will have met my husband sooner, because I know that when I meet my husband, I would have wanted him to be in my life for like ever. I think that's the only thing I'm ever going to say, like, I wish I had done that sooner. The things you're not going to wish is that you will never wish that you jumped into a rebound relationship. You will never ever wish that you rushed into something. You will be so grateful that you didn't rush into something. You will be so grateful that you chose to sit in the unknown, the scariness, the solitude. You will be so grateful of that. And you will be so grateful that you sat being single enough to hear yourself again, to hear the things that you say, to hear the things that you might need to work on, because that decision that you make to stay single after your relationship will change your entire future relationships, even probably your friendships. It will give your nervous system enough time to heal, which means one small slight trigger isn't going to throw you back into fight or flight ever again. And you will realize that your life has expanded so much, and you have got so much more opportunity, so much more breathing space, more space to actually spread your wings that may have been clipped during a relationship. Like, you will realize that all of this has come to you because you made that one decision to sit with the hardest time of your life of being single, where single sounds so scary, it sounds so lonely. You do not associate single when you come out of a relationship with growth, healing, and like being able to expand into like this new version of you. You associate it with failure, like you associate it with loneliness, and you associate it with dread. So I fully understand how you're feeling, and how you probably, may have listened to this episode and thought like, I don't feel like that yet. Neither did I. I didn't feel like that. I felt like, why do I have to be the single one? And, why is my ex in a new relationship? And when I didn't want any of this, it's horrible. Now, I am so grateful that I have been given this path. I'm on this path, and people will look at you and go, why is she so happy being single? And they don't realize that this is what single means to you. The life that you want, the relationship that you want, the future you want is only ever going to be designed when you have time to sit by yourself, because this is your life. I will put emphasis on this all the time, and I say it all the time. You get one shot at this. You get one life. You're not building a life for anybody else other than yourself. It's your life. So when people come to me and they say, my friends have said, oh God, it must be so awful being single. Why is it awful being single? You literally get to sit and map out your entire life. And I'm going to do a whole episode on manifesting on my single winter series this week. I am very excited for that, because manifesting, you literally have a catalogue of the universe in front of you, and you can go and get anything you desire. This doesn't mean that you have to go and like manifest £1 billion on private jets and yachts at the weekend. You could manifest the most secure, loving person into your life. You could manifest a promotion at work. You could manifest in 2 years' time upgrading your car. You can literally manifest from the smallest to the biggest things in your life. So I'm going to do a full episode on that on my single winter series this week. If that is something that you are interested in, please follow the links in my bio. You can sign up through my link to my Stan store. It will take you to my podcast landing page. You can sign up to my Patreon then. If you've enjoyed this episode, please let me know. This is, like I said, what my sort of 2026 content is going to move into, about being confident in being single and having the right mindset to go after your dreams and to go and design a life that you will forever be so proud of, that you will look back on your relationship and look back on your breakup and think, I am not grateful that it happened, but I am grateful that it happened. And when you get to that point, you will understand what that means. Thank you for listening, guys. As always, like I said, the option of my Patreon is always there. If you want to come over, you get 2 extra additional episodes a week. You also get the single winter series access, which is a full video episode of me. They've been ranging from like 45 minutes to an hour. So yeah, I can yap. We all know that. If you're struggling with no contact, my guide is also available. You can access that through the link in my bio. If not, guys, look after yourself. I will see you next week for a full festive episode. I'm even going to wear festive headwear, so be excited for that. Yeah, look after yourself, guys. I will speak to you next week. Bye.